Does Congress need to do a short-term fix here to buy more time on a compromise on the debt ceiling? And what are the odds of getting that done in May, this month?
It has to be done between the president and the House of Representatives and the Republican House of Representatives, the Republican majority. I think a short-term debt ceiling increase would do a little bit of a cooling off period. But you can ask, if the president is not going to engage, what does buying short-term mean? The president has to engage. He's got to show leadership of the political reality, in the context of a political reality, not in the context of how he would like it to be.
Okay, so what might that compromise look like? From where you sit, what would be acceptable for the president to give way on, and what would be acceptable for the Republicans to give way on?
It is very hard for me to say as a senator. I say the president not only has not shown leadership, he's been a black hole for leadership, sucking out the ability of anyone else to do something. People approach me and other senators. We've worked on bipartisan things in the past. What would you do? I got to say, it's not worthwhile for me to do anything because the president says he only wants that which he wants exactly the way he wants it. Now, that doesn't work in a marriage.
That's a starting point for negotiations, though.
Except it's been a starting point for several weeks now. At some point, particularly after the House Republicans actually returned a deal, that's when he should have engaged like the next day. And instead, now he's having a meeting of the so-called four corners. The only person he needs to meet with is Kevin McCarthy. And having McConnell there and Schumer is merely window dressing. The president needs to engage in the political reality of McCarthy's ability to lead that House.
But there is some concern, and we know that he's sitting down with them tomorrow. And I thought it was interesting, some of the commentary by the Senate leader, Mitch McConnell, who was asked about his role, kind of echoing what you just said, that he would rather defer to McCarthy because it's basically, you know, his ball to play with right now. The question is, McCarthy's pretty much put his cards on the table. We know exactly what he's proposed. We know what his party wants here. What compromise, if any, do you think the White House is willing to make around that bill that passed the House?
I don't know, but there's some things that are just low-hanging fruit.
It's low-hanging fruit, and I know that you're not directly involved in it as a senator, but at some point, if there is a failure for the Biden administration and the House to come to an agreement, at some point this becomes a problem for everyone.
I agree with that totally. But could you imagine the president coming back and saying, I don't know this, I'm just making up numbers? Part of what the House Republicans propose is for the president to cease his student loan pause and other student loan policies. Every month that the student loan pause continues is $5 billion more against our borrowing authority. Now, by the way, there's already programs. If you lose your job, you can't pay back your loan. There's already programs that take care of you. What the president is proposing, according to CBO, will cost $500 billion, almost. $500 billion. Now, is it reasonable for House Republicans to say we already have programs that take care of people who lose their job? Do we really need to spend $500 billion on this? I think it's reasonable. Could the president say, okay, I'll give you on that, but I want a little bit more over here? That's how negotiations take place.
I am curious as to what you're hearing from your constituents, meaning how much does this issue resonate with regular people? I mean, we talk about it on the high level. It's easier for us to kind of look at it from the way we look at it. But are people on the ground, are they really looking at this and saying this is an issue that matters to us, this is something we're going to vote on in the next election?
What really resonates is the inflation that's just eating away at their paycheck, which they understand is related to out-of-control spending. What really eats at them is what they perceive as out-of-control spending. And it really eats with them the unfairness of the student loan policy. There's a few people who like it. Most people are saying, I pay back my loans. I never went to college.
It does depend on generations. I want to go back for a moment here to what you're hearing as well. Janet Yellen has said that the global financial system faces chaos, her words, unless Congress acts pretty soon. What kind of market instability do you think is needed in order to push forward a resolution, whether it's this month, whether it's June 1st?
I will say it takes a president to engage. Of course, it's Yellen's responsibility to go out there and project that upon Congress. And Congress would say, we've given them a bill. We've begun the negotiations. And the president finally is getting around to meeting with everybody. The president needs to show leadership. Not just say, I want it exactly the way I want it, and I won't talk to you otherwise.
I am curious.
That's not leadership.
But some of the stuff that's on the table, I mean, with student loans, but it's also, we get into sort of the entitlement programs and everything else. There's a lot here that either people are trying to cut or think should at least be part of that conversation. And I'm curious as to, beyond just student loans, what else are you looking to maybe trim that would actually get us to whatever that fiscal agreement is going to be?
Well, first, I think, this is what I'm reading from the Senate, from the House Republicans.
Okay.
So I can't represent anybody but what
I understand, yeah.
That said, I actually think work requirements for able-bodied adults who do not have dependents is a pretty good thing. Because if you look at it, somebody's paying for that Medicaid. It is a taxpayer, and she's getting out there and she's working hard, but paying for someone else who chooses not to work. We have unemployment so low that if you wish to have a job, you can. And may I point out, statistically, working is good for you. Statistically, you stay out of trouble and have a healthier life if you work.
Right. But there are a lot of people on these programs that are out of work, not necessarily by choice. And given economic conditions, there'll probably be a lot more people out of work.
Well, if you look at the latest employment numbers, I mean, unemployment's at its lowest. And so, again, it's not for everybody if you're disabled, but it's for the able-bodied, no dependents person who is single, should there be a work requirement.
Yeah.
I actually think that is a reasonable thing.
One thing that comes up in these debt negotiations and anything on government spending is that there are certain things that are sacred cows that both sides have agreed just can't be touched, whether it's Medicaid, whether it's Social Security. And I know that you've been working with a bipartisan group of senators to shore up Social Security. Is there anything in that that could be pushed forward in some kind of debt agreement negotiations with the White House right now?
Scarlet, be still my heart. But first, let me say that what we're working on Social Security cannot impact the debt ceiling agreement because nothing changes in the first 10 years. And for folks who don't know, the program goes insolvent in 8 or 9 years. When it goes insolvent, everybody gets a 24% cut who's on social. Poverty among the elderly doubles. And so far, both Biden and Trump are pretending there's no problem. Now, I would say it's going to help our long-term indebtedness to help this. And it's going back to the social needs of the people dependent upon these programs. If Biden really cared about their social needs, he'd be doing something to make sure that there was not a doubling of poverty among the elderly when the program goes insolvent.